Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome back to Thinking Out Loud with Ru. I am Rutendo, and of course this is a platform where we speak about everything adulting. Everything adulting from a psychological perspective as well as from a Christian perspective. So one of the things that I've been thinking about lately has been culture, right? Culture in terms of how it impacts our identity and how it impacts our mental health, and whether or not it is some of the things that are within my culture, I'm going to pass them on to my children, and whether or not I'm actually going to be practicing them myself, because it's just a topic that has been playing on my mind over the past few years. Because when you get to a certain point, you start to think about kids, you start to think about how you want your life to be. And I've been at that stage of thinking about culture. And recently I was on a panel discussion actually on World Mental Health Awareness Day. And that was one of the things that we're tackling. We're tackling specifically how culture and identity can impact mental health. And it was such a eye-opening discussion, and I was just like, why not bring it to this platform? Why not speak about it on Thinking Out Loud with Ru? Because I'm always thinking aloud about specific topics that affect my life presently. And because I know that I'm experiencing it, I always have the thought at the back of my mind that someone else is probably thinking about it too. And I recently watched a video, and in this video, a person who was a new father was speaking about specifically a cultural practice where in the third trimester, so when a woman is closer to giving birth, they are taken to her maternal home. And this is a cultural practice that is done in order for the woman to feel supported, right? In order for her to rest during the end of her pregnancy. And not only that, when the baby is now welcomed into the world, the woman is also given guidance and support on how to take care of a newborn. Because at the end of the day, it's a new parent. They're new parents. It's new to them. They're tiny little human beings, and bathing them as tiny as they are is scary for a lot of people. And the thought of it is also scary for me. It really is. But given the complexities of being a new parent, the woman is taken to her maternal home to help her in order to adjust into this role of motherhood. And I completely understand it, right? I understand it from the cultural perspective of understanding that the man was probably at work, right? And only until recently did the High Court of South Africa rule saying that every parent, so it was a unanimous ruling, saying that all parents are entitled to equal parental leave. It only happened recently in 2025. And it's an article that I read only recently in October. So where in 2025, both men and women have been working, and we've been advocating for things like equal rights, but only now is it being recognized in South Africa that men, fathers, should also get leave in order for them to bond with their children, in order for them to support their children in the early stages of life. Only now is it being acknowledged that fathers are an integral part of their children, because in the past, women were the primary parent. And because they were the primary parent who were also housewives at the time, it wasn't found necessary for a man to also get parental leave. But because things are changing and the laws also have to change with the way life is changing, culture also is adapting in different ways. And this new father was explaining that a cultural practice, like in my language is called masungiro, a cultural practice like that can contribute to fathers feeling left out and alienated from their own family. Because here is the mother, and the child creating a bond because they're not even in the same home. She has gone back to her maiden home and they're creating this bond and he's not a part of it. And then when they come back, they formed this little club where he is not a part of it. And he was just explaining how something like that can contribute to fathers not feeling like they are even part of their own families. And I sympathized with that quite a lot because I do think that certain things that were created to offer support, at that point in time, they did offer support and it made sense. But in a world where it is possible for men and women to be in the same space raising their children together, it's important that we revisit some of the cultural practices, whether or not they're relevant in today's modern day, or if it is something that you might be looking at not adopting for your own family and going to a point of just leaving it behind. Not saying that for some people it is something that is not relevant for them, but it's not every cultural practice that is going to be relevant for everyone, and it's not every single cultural practice that you should also implement in your life. And I think it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because when you start to think about starting your own family and think about getting married and things like that, it's things that play at the back of your mind, whether or not to give your children, for example, Shona names, or whether or not to give them biblical names. But it all depends on, again, who you're going to marry. Are you going to marry a Zimbabwean? Are they even going to be able to pronounce some of the names that you might be fond of? It's a thing, because phonetically, some of the words within my Shona language might not be words that other people can pronounce, simply because it was never in their language, and phonetically they never developed the ability to be able to say certain words. Even though yes, some of them are relatively simple and anyone can say it, despite of culture and heritage and all these different nationalities that we have. But it's things to think about, to say that some of the cultural activities and practices that we have, is it something that we're going to be continuing to pass down to our children? Things like Rora, right, Lobola in other cultures. Is it things that you're going to be passing down? I understand conceptually why certain things were developed, because it made sense for that climate. It made sense for the society and how it was at that point in time. But I do think that there needs to be a level of rethinking some of the things, that how things are done within this modern day. And I've been thinking about that a lot, because I think with the way that life is changing, in order for there to not be all these gender wars or even just challenges with mental health where men feel unseen, where men's pain is not really understood by women, or women's pain is not understood by men, there needs to be a level of being able to empathize, a level of being able to put yourself in the other gender's shoe and see life from their perspective and be able to adjust to life as it is now and make changes if need be. And something that I really thought about when I was thinking about this topic specifically was biblically, when Jesus was saying to the scribes and the Pharisees, because they came to him and they were saying that, why are you healing people on a Sabbath? Because we all know what the Sabbath is. Sabbath is meant for rest. It means that you and your workers, people who are working within your home, your servants, it means that you and everyone within your home, as well as your animals, it went all the way down to the animals, that no one is working. Everyone is getting a chance to rest, and everyone is getting a chance to remember everything that God did and to worship him for it. So because it was a Sabbath and he healed someone who was sick on a Sabbath, they pointed fingers at him and said, "Do you not know the law? Why are you breaking the law?" And he responded to them in Mark 2, verse 27. And he said, "The Sabbath was made for men, and not men for the Sabbath." And the reason why I thought about this is because when it comes to cultural practices, I genuinely think that they were created to bring about some sort of good and to bring about some sort of convenience in order to take care of people at that time. And when it comes to us passing down cultural practices, we need to remember exactly what Jesus said about the Sabbath, that the Sabbath was made for men and not men for the Sabbath. And in the same concept and relating it to this topic, culture was made for man and not men for culture. So in our pursuit for wanting to practice cultural practices and wanting to meet cultural expectations and cultural demands, we need to remember that the very point of culture was in order for us to receive support. The very point of Masungiro, going back to what I was speaking about earlier, was for women to receive support. But if it is now we're living in a world that acknowledges that men have a responsibility in child rearing, that there shouldn't be any discrimination between mothers or fathers in terms of getting parental leave, then it means that, is it really necessary for Masungiro to even be a thing? When both of you can also learn together, when both of you can also bond with your child together, are certain practices that we have within our cultures necessary, or do we need to tweak things in order for them to now serve us and serve us within this cultural atmosphere that we're in, where politically also things are changing, where the High Court is ruling something different? Does that mean that there are certain cultural practices that I didn't even mention within this video that you might need to be rethinking on your end to say that, do I need to continue with this, or do I need to tweak it for myself? Because it's always something that is playing on my mind, that if something is not working for me and it's still part of culture, I would definitely change it. And I'm one of those people who, I genuinely don't mind having a fight with people. I don't mind fighting my people, fighting my family, and standing up for certain things that are a little bit on the more unconventional end. I don't mind it. I don't mind having conversations that are maybe not as safe for people to have. I don't mind being on people's wrong end when it comes to things that might be upsetting because it goes against culture. And it's simply because of that understanding of remembering that culture is something that is shaped by human beings, and it's shaped by human beings in order to make your life easier, in order to create values that also honor women or honor men at that point in time. And if there's a shift that happens within the world, and the world is going a different direction, and there's something that is going to help you create different cultural norms, that is what culture means. It means creating norms that are actually going to govern different people, but are also going to be respecting people at that point in time. And I hope that when you think about cultural practices and you think about some of the things that you want passed down to your children, you also consider the fact that culture is not set in stone. Culture is something that is shaped by human beings at that point in time. So do not allow people who created culture that was convenient for them to enforce cultural expectations if they're no longer relevant to you now. And it's something that, of course, sometimes will cause a little bit of disagreement and a little bit of conflict. But I think when something does not feel so great or aligned to what you're trying to build, it also means that you might need to find the courage to be able to fight for some of the things that you want. But anyway, this is today's topic. So basically, are some of the cultural practices that we have still relevant today? Are they? It's something to definitely think about. So this is Thinking Out Loud with you, and thank you so much for watching this entire video. And if you made it till the end, thank you so much for the support. Please do consider leaving a like and also leave a comment down below. What are some of the cultural practices that you've been thinking about? Are you going to pass on everything that comes from your culture onto your children? Am I the only person who's thinking about this? Share it in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time. Bye for now.